Oh, hello? Hello? I think we're back. Hello? Okay, we're back. We're back. I think. Are we back? I haven't got a live chat anymore. No, it's cut off the other one. Oh, that's so annoying. That's so annoying. Right, okay. So, that is so annoying. Oh! So, yeah, basically, the internet just cut out for a second and then it's reconnected. I thought it was going to reconnect to the same stream, but it started a new stream with the same name. That's really annoying. But anyway, not much I can do about it now. It's happened. And I'm near the end as well. That's what makes it so annoying. With so near the end of this. Oh god, I'm sorry about that, guys. I'm very sorry.
Really?
Yeah.
He must be a gender abolitionist?
Yeah.
But gender isn't masculinity. I think masculinity and femininity are just like generally traits that you would associate with that sex, but can be across sexes. Yeah, you get me? They're usually tied to the sexes because there is a biological component to them, but because of the cultural components, they can cross sexes as well.
Well,
But he would probably say that there are things that like women. I guess he would probably say there's nothing that a woman does just because she's a woman. So he must be okay.
That might be what he'll say, but come on, you're trying to tell me that there isn't things that women will do simply because they are women. I mean, childbirth's one, seems like it, but like that. But there's plenty of stuff like that. Like even men, like the propensity for violence for men. The reason why violence is considered masculine is because of that, because it's more likely, and that men are going to do it because they're men. You know. Ugh.
That's
Aaron,
consistent with his worldview.
I think to your point, asking like why would
I think she just said she doesn't know if she agrees, but she's trying to understand what he's saying. I think
any
which is
man
fair enough.
be a feminist? So I just think that we don't all view feminism the way you do. Similar to the way the Black Lives Matter movement has been moved and changed and developed in terms of the way that people identify it. The things that you speak about when you talk about third wave feminism is not what I mean when I say that I am a male feminist. And so, yeah, no, if you can't understand that me wanting to make the world a more equal.
So I think like men can be a feminist and not be predatory. A man who makes feminism like a central part of his identity, like it's one of the most important political talking points that he has, which there are those types of guys, always hit really weirdly with me.
Yeah, a little creepy crumb.
I'm gonna be honest. Some of the most like aggressive sexism that I've ever experienced has come from male feminists. Like this guy is a male feminist who unironically has bigotry of low expectation. Like he wants to infantilize women. And it's like, you're not doing us any good. I would literally, like, if this is the type of male feminist you are, he seems like a really sweet guy. Like, the issue is, like, it's well-intentioned. I would literally prefer for you to not be. I would prefer that you hated feminism than for you to, like, be a feminist.
I've found in recent years that you don't have to be anti-feminism, but you can basically just say that you're not a feminist. You don't have to say you're anti-feminist, but you just say, you know, you're just like, look, feminism's for women, you know, and there's some things I like about it, some things I don't like about it, but that's up to women to decide. A lot of women are pretty happy with that, to be honest with you, and I think it's a little bit more honest, and it's just a little. I think women can take you on the same page, but even just saying you're not a feminist, you don't even have to make a statement about it. You can just say, no, I'm not really a feminist. I just don't know if I'm really into it. I will say that in recent years, I've noticed that more and more women are more receptive to that. I remember when I was younger, when I was like 20, my early 20s, like 20 to like maybe say 24, 25. If you said you weren't a feminist to like certain kinds of women, they would go mental. Like they would always become like huge arguments and like shouting matches and fucking people like then starting to spread rumors about you and stuff like that. And it was nasty. It was fully nasty if you said that you weren't. Because I remember what happened when I started challenging feminist ideas. People started thinking I hated women and all this stuff. And like they would draw these huge conclusions. People that had known me for a long time, by the way, just because I'd started questioning some of the narratives they were putting out, and it really bothered me. And it's been interesting these past few years to recognize, to see this shift, this kind of cultural shift where there's still a lot of women who consider themselves feminist. I definitely meet a fair amount of women who are feminist in one way or another. But they're usually much more respectful of you and your opinions if you straight up just say you're not a feminist and stuff. There's not as much anger towards it. It becomes more of a conversation, which it has been nice to see that development over time. And I will say that it does seem like it might be a situation where women, if you say you're a male feminist, women might actually start to think you're lying now. Whereas if you say, no, I'm not a feminist, then they know that you're being honest with them. So even though that they obviously might be a bit disappointed that you're not on board with feminism in the way that they would want you to be, they don't have to worry about you potentially lying to them about your stance. Because no one's going to lie about not being a feminist if they're really a feminist. You know what I mean? Whereas men will probably lie saying that they're a feminist in order to get to women, you know? And I think that women have kind of cottoned on to that over the years, and I now have a lot more respect for men who say they're not feminists because they know that they can trust them a bit more, I guess. I don't know.
But advocate for the increasing infantilization of women. Like, please.
That's just my observation, anyway. Maybe that's just distinct to where I'm from, but like that seems to be a kind of thing that's been happening, at least in the UK, anyway.
Please stop. There are obstacles that we have, and let's talk about how women overcome it, not just say like, fuck yeah.
Cool. And
is Nick a feminist? I believe he's now identifying as a feminist, but that's because he believes in... he was not a feminist, and I think he is a feminist, he said now. But it's again for like one of those... I think it's more for like a... I don't know if I think his reason for being a feminist is a good reason, because he thinks feminists are evil, so I don't know. Ask Nick.
Level playing field for my two daughters.
I'm assuming Nick is her partner.
Wife.
He's bombastic. He'll say things in very like bombastic ways and then walk it back. Just ask Nick. Is he a masculist?
For my mother and my mother-in-law, and standing in front of people.
Yeah, I know. He thinks feminists are evil, and he's a feminist. So ask him. He likes to make statements like that make people be like, what? I don't know. Ask him.
Maybe he's just evil.
He's the accelerationist, not me, okay?
To take liberties away from them. That's the reason why I am a male feminist. It's a perpetuation of oppression.
No, I think he's saying because they think feminists are evil, he believes that that it's to some degree because he believes in certain elements of feminism, like encouraging feminine values to be more respected in society, that because he believes most feminists are evil, he must be a feminist to try to like offset it and like change the group from within, basically.
That I'm trying to dismantle.
He's a sleeper agent. He's a feminist sleeper agent, is that what he's saying?
For me, I think we're taking this from a very heteronormative perspective, right? All my friends aren't straight women. So I'm not gonna look at my non-binary or LGBTQ friends and be like, oh, just because I can't have sex with you, I'm not gonna fight for your rights. There is no personal gain for just
Well,
saying
two
that we
things
should
can be
there.
true. I agree with you, and I think a lot of us agree on what we're talking about. It's just these labels are in the way of getting us to
It's
that.
also a blanket statement.
One thing to build on top of too is, to an extent, leading men to want to take advantage of women is the very pressure put on by other men.
Yeah.
That if you're not sleeping around, if you're not getting laid, you aren't. And that doesn't come from women, at least from my experience.
That's
and
patriarchal culture.
If men
Yeah.
were a little bit like so, I'll say this now. I didn't lose my virginity till I was 22. Now I'm fine with that. If you ask me at 21 how I felt about that, I would change the subject as quickly as I possibly could because I was ashamed
They make
of
movies
it.
about it.
Right.
Yeah, dude. Like, I mean, I was ashamed of it, but you know, that's part of the patriarchy.
This is gonna be the last prompt.
Patriarchy. Oh,
I wouldn't consider that part of the patriarchy, but I do think there's an issue with men putting sex on a pedestal. I definitely did experience that growing up, like men or boys or whatever, people just acting like sex was like the best thing since sliced bread. And you know, sex is all right, sex is good, but it's not that amazing. Let's face it. And at the end of the day, sex is a lot better in a committed relationship than it is when you're just running about sticking it in anything. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's just yeah, I don't know. I that's probably one of the few bits and pieces that I've really properly agreed with the male feminists about. I think there's a big problem with men simping for women, putting sex on a pedestal, thinking that sex validates their life somehow. But kings, my beautiful kings out there, you don't got to do any of that. You don't got to do any of that. Work on yourself, get on your Sigma grind, get your boyfriends together, do your face, do your nails, get your shit in order, and they'll come in more ways than one. I mean, they will gravitate towards you as you go along, and then you can work on the Duck 13 says I don't know where to look. What do you mean you don't know where to look? But yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know, like, how do I put this? Like, yeah, okay, men, just stop putting sex on a pedestal. That's it. That's all I want to say. Just stop doing it. Your worth is not judged by how many people you've had sex with or any of that shit. Listen, King. Listen to me. Yeah, and I'm definitely going to teach my sons that if I have sons. You know, I want them to make sure that they don't give in to like a promiscuous lifestyle. I don't want them to think that they're worthless if they're not having sex and stuff, because that did bother me growing up. That was a thing that affected me, and it's something that men do. It's one of the few things that they said here that men actually do to each other, and yeah, it does need to be sorted out, really. I don't like to call things patriarchy because I think it's a bit redundant to put everything under this label of patriarchy. I get earlier in the stream, I already gave my opinion on patriarchy. I do think it's just, generally speaking, it's a legal system and it should remain that as the definition. But I do think it is a societal pressure that needs to change. I don't think it's right for men to do that to each other. I just don't think it's healthy for their mental health. Stop doing it! The Duck 13 says, but I'm not a man, I'm 15. You make sense, damn. Well, if I can make sense to the 15-year-olds, then that's what we're going to do. But thanks for tuning in, by the way. Appreciate that. But yeah, I'll say to you, as a 15-year-old lad, I was never told at your age. I'm 31, so I'm like double your age, right? Nobody told me this shit. Nobody said, care about your own shit. Work out. Be active. You play your video games, by the way. You go on Twitch. You do what you want to do, but stay active in some way. You know, in a way that keeps you doing something. You know, if it's rock climbing, like maybe you don't want to do traditional workouts because they're boring, right? Do rock climbing or something. Do skateboarding. Do, I don't know, whatever the fuck it is you want to do. Whatever appeals to you, but get yourself a hobby that's active. Gets your blood pumping. You know, look at your style and stuff like that, and think about love, think about relationships, right? It's never going to be easy because girls are annoying, but you will have a much better time doing that than if you try to chase sex. When you chase sex, all you're going to do is drive yourself crazy, and your own self-worth is going to go into the dust. So if I was speaking to myself at 15, this is what I would have said to me. So take it or leave it. Take it if that's what you want. It's not up to me how you live your life, but that is what I would say. So.
Oh my God, where
I
did
want
I
to hear
go?
everyone speak. I want
What the
everyone to
fuck?
get their voice in. Be mindful of folks that are trying to
What?
talk. Step
Did my stream just
forward
die?
if you agree with the prompt. I like living in
No, I'm here.
a patriarchal society.
Damn straight. No. I think the issue here is that we don't live in a patriarchal society, so it's a bit of a trick question, really, because they're implying that we definitely do live in a patriarchal society, whereas I would contend that we just don't live in one. And I like the society we live in, and I think it can get better. I think it could get better. It could get more fair for women, and it could get more fair for men too. But is it a patriarchal society? I don't think so. I'm not thinking. I'm not giving the affirmative on this one.
I like living in a patriarchal society. Okay. Nobody agrees because. Okay.
So
He's gonna
Duck 13th is saying you don't hear me. Oh, have I seriously not been? Somebody told me my levels were fine before. Oh, have I seriously not been? Oh, shit. So I'm watching on my phone. It's coming through on my YouTube. Are you sure? Are you sure?
Taking it a weird way, isn't he?
I mean, we're near the end now. I'm not going to start doing technical difficulty problems now. But if you are struggling to hear me, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe that's Twitch. Maybe you want to jump over to YouTube. I don't know. I don't know if maybe Twitch is having an issue with me. I'm not sure.
He's gonna be like, by this I mean, not the prompt. maybe
I
he'll
would
agree with it.
say patriarchal society. Again, I've
Oh no, he's big on the
mentioned,
male leadership
the
stuff.
scriptural basis for this. But I think patriarchal society is the way that society functions best. Yeah, patriarchy is just a man-led society. So I think we've kind of flipped the term on its head to mean something that it doesn't mean, to say that a patriarchy is a society that oppresses women. That's not what a patriarchy is. So I think if you have a patriarchy operating properly, you have men that are responsible and taking care of their families, taking care of the women of society, and in turn the women have equal opportunities to pursue whatever career they want, to be a mom, to be a wife, and to do the things that they want to do as well.
Yeah, it's not. What he said isn't completely bad. I just, and I do think that he's obviously not a raging misogynist, is he? He just likes the traditional lifestyle, and he just hopes that the rest of society would go back to that, I guess. But I don't know, man. The cat's out of the bag at this point, I think. Is this about equal rights? It's about male feminists and non-male feminists, but the reason that I'm reacting to Erudite in particular is because I wanted like a kind of well-rounded female opinion in the situation, because I'm going to talk about it. I'm not a feminist, but I'm not an anti-feminist. So we've got anti-feminists, we've got pro-feminists. I think Erudite is a feminist. I'm not sure, but I think she is a feminist, but she is pretty level-headed feminist. I'm not a feminist. I think feminism is outdated, and we need to talk about societal issues in a different way, outside of these norms that have been created around feminism and the ideas therein. So that is my point of view on this.
So I'll go first. This is a little bit of a personal, emotional thing. At the beginning of September, I lost my brother to cancer. And I took about 2 or 3 weeks off work. And then I really started feeling, the financial impact of it. And I have my girlfriend, people in my life telling me that they want to help me out financially. But I have this thing internally within me that feels like a leech. In some way, shape, or form, that is because of this thing this expectation that we put on men to be providers. It's really fucking hard. And I can't explain why. I would have liked to have a little bit more time than 3 weeks before I had to start worrying about fucking money again after my brother passed away. And I do feel like that kind of is a direct result of the patriarchy. And I know that it is myself, it's my personal feelings, but I think it stems from the society that I grew up in that I'm even feeling these things to begin with.
I totally feel what he's saying, and I have a lot of empathy for what he's saying, because sounds horrible. In fact, there was a little bit of a tear coming to my eye there, because that was a pretty emotional confession. But I think he's beating himself up a bit too much. I don't know if it's somewhat the echoes of patriarchy. It's definitely societal expectations from women as well. Women putting that pressure on men to be those providers. It is also himself to a degree as well. But it's also a marker of his own compassion and conscientiousness that he does not want to be a burden to other people, even in such a distressing situation. And I think that's actually kind of commendable. And I think he has to pat himself on the back a little bit there and just say, to me, that shows that you're a good person, and you're trying to be a good person. You don't want to be a burden to other people, even in a time where maybe people wouldn't even mind you being a burden to them, because it's understandable. I think it's a shame. It's a shame that he feels that way and that he thinks it's all just patriarchy. I think that muddles the situation. I think primarily his drive there for feeling like a leech is more conscientiousness than anything else. And that just speaks to who he is as a person. I mean, obviously, he's probably a feminist because he is conscientious as well, and he wants to be conscientious of women. But then, in doing that, he's then ended up being embroiled in a kind of ideology rather than just going from the idea of just being conscientious to women.
To start, I want to say I'm really sorry for your loss, because I can't even imagine what it's like to lose a loved one. So I want to thank you for sharing your story. It's really important for people to hear. But I don't think that it's accurate to blame a horrific situation on one aspect of society or the patriarchy or this without any solid basis.
So I think that's a fair response. And to clarify my statement just a little bit, that's more of a communal problem. I wish there was a little bit more of a stronger community sense.
Come on.
A patriarchal.
Let's respect feminine qualities more.
Yeah, let's start men clubs again. Men, the bros need to get together and hash it out, Set up like a little boxing gym in somebody's garden or something. Everybody comes over for a couple of hours and hits the bag. You chat some shit. You talk about work. You talk about your relationships. Talk about what's going on in the world. And, your family problems and stuff like that. Yeah, he's right. Men could do more to build communities for themselves. They really could. That's another criticism I would give to men, to say that that's something that we could probably really benefit from. And they used to have like male specific bars and pubs and areas and clubs and whatever. And when I say club, I don't mean like a nightclub. I mean like a kind of what would you call it? Like an extracurricular activity thing. You know what I mean? Like a yacht club or a football club or whatever it is. Darts club. That kind of shit, People do still do these kinds of things, but men aren't really allowed generally to have these single sex spaces. Like when men try to have they had them a lot back in the days, but then it's in recent years, in the past 10, 20 years, it's become pretty ubiquitous that women are allowed single-sex spaces if they feel the need. But if men want to have single-sex spaces for themselves to say, like, hey, this is our place to bond, this is our place to lift each other up, and whatever, like, women would demand to be able to enter that space, you know? And they've done that. They've systematically broken down, like, most places where men would commune amongst themselves for that purpose. And I think that's a problem. Yeah, we need to bring back the men's clubs. We need to bring them back.
We don't need to shit on masculinity. We need to prop up and respect feminine qualities more.
Society is not one
Go
of
there.
support.
Go
It's
there.
one of merit.
Go there.
It's one of bootstraps. It's one of
It's
strength.
competition.
Yeah, it's competition.
You said that a merit-based society is somehow correlated with the patriarchy, and I don't see the correlation there, because if you look anywhere in nature, everything is merit-based. You know, lions in the safari, it's about strength. It's about, you know, competition. That's just how our world works. And my biggest flaw with
See, again, he's equating patriarchy with like merit-based, and it's just like the male feminist. You can do things and be competitive in a feminine way that is still merit-based. Like, I don't, this is the issue. I really hate conflating, like, what are you asking for? A society that's not merit-based? Question mark? Are you saying that if we had a matriarchy, that just like nobody would value logic or merits or like skill or competition? Like, that wouldn't be true. I would hope not, because I think like women are more based than that.
I think that, for some men, self-describing as feminist effectively silences their conscience when they say subtly, and sometimes blatantly misogynistic things, like
Yes.
the bigotry of low expectation.
Yes, based. So big, true. Like the bigotry of low expectations. Absolutely, right? This is like this is the shit that, to be honest, is a good criticism of like people of my leaning, which is like, be very careful that like the group that you're protecting, that you care about, that you're not engaging in low expectation bigotry. There has to be a way that we acknowledge all of the systemic obstacles and like intersectional problems that people have without looking at an individual and saying, you can't, right? You are less capable of doing so. We should just make things easier for you. And it's like, no, we should make the obstacles smaller, right? We should make the obstacles smaller. But that's not that's not precisely the same thing as saying you can't, right?
Yeah, I think I generally agree with this. I think it's more, the way I would phrase it is that when it comes to obstacles in society, for any group really, man, woman, or race, whatever race you want to talk about, religion, it's more, I come at it from a teach a man to fish, not give a man a fish kind of psychology. And I think it's much better to, yeah, like I say, give a man a fish, you know? Teach a man to teach a man to fish. So when it comes to women, you got to teach them how to engage with the men. Also with the men, teach them to, I mean, there's been a lot of effort put into teaching men how to deal with women in certain spaces. I think we could do a little bit more to teach women how to engage with males in particular instances, like how to be a bit more assertive and whatnot. You know, just all that kind of shit, you know. I think it's going to take a while. There's probably going to be a few more generations before it settles in properly, but I think we're most of the way there with a lot of it. I think the biggest change is going to be getting women to alter their perception of their place in society. Men are struggling with it, but they've generally either accepted it or they've given up because of it. Whereas women, there hasn't really been much of a pressure for them to change how they view men and their role in society. I don't think they've had as much pressure to do that. So.
You know, masculinity is like logic and merit based. No, because women have lots of merit. Women are very skilled. They're being
Yeah, I wouldn't use the term merit when it in with masculinity, because merit is kind of divorced from. I think masculinity and femininity is more that I would prescribe behaviors to. But these behaviors can have their own merits that are distinguished from each other. But yeah, that's a feminine value of like getting together, powwowing, having a chat about your day with your boyfriends, with the boyfriends, getting the face mask on, bumping that Biggie Smalls. I think that could be beneficial to men. I think men do need to do more for that kind of thing. In nerd circles, it's not too bad, because they do a lot of meetups, like game nights and stuff like that, and that can. In nerd circles, it's not too bad, but and maybe sports circles, because they'll meet up for games and watch games together and stuff like that. But outside of those kinds of things, I do think that men struggle a lot more just on the kind of day-to-day communal vibes. So yeah, it'd be nice if more men did that, definitely. I would be fully happy to see men do that.
being skilled isn't a masculine thing. It's just, again, it's kind of like more like maturity. It's about like growing in a skill.
Mm.
Compete in a feminine way, like who gives the best head. You have one more chance to make a comment, and then you're out of here.
Feminism today, or any social movement really, is that some things are just inherent to nature. So to try to
Think
solve
about it.
Equal outcome and
Think about it. Teamwork is feminine. Teamwork is feminine. Good competition relies on positive traits from masculine and feminine. You need to be good at building team, have trust and rapport, care about each other, but also be aggressive and protective. Both of these things are valuable for being competitive and being.
Yeah, I agree with her. Yeah, that's the yin and yang of it, isn't it? Really, that is the complete yin and yang of the social cohesion. 100%.
Skillful. Of course. That's what football is. Football is, believe it or not, football in many ways is a great example of both like masculine and feminine traits being maximized to their best. It's great teamwork. It's working together. It's communicating. It's protecting one another. It's being aggressive. It's a whole bunch of good shit.
and solve all of these problems. It's just naive, and it takes away from actually solving the issues that are in front
You're basically just describing not equal outcome, but equal opportunity. Yeah, exactly.
of us, because it's a delusion.
There will always be winners and losers.
Yeah. I just wanted to go back and, we've been asking, what does patriarchy mean, right? I don't think it just means male-led. What I'm trying to dismantle is the institutions in our society reinforcing that males are superior.
Masculinity is superior.
A lot of
I don't think we have many institutions saying males are superior for the most part.
No, I will say that masculine traits are generally prized higher, especially in like high pressure kinds of situations. I always feel like there will be certain professions or certain areas of the economy that are always going to prize that, because it just is part of the nature of that particular industry or whatever. But I do think that people could do a bit better to incorporate that feminine side, though. I do agree with her on that. I think that's something that is being overlooked to a degree. Yeah,
There are some, like in my chat even, but most people aren't saying males are superior. The problem, right? This is why, for example, when we get to things like systemic racism, it's really hard to put your feet on like what it's talking about. But in a lot of ways, what systemic racism looks like now is things that are white feel better. We just like and respect whitey things more. But then when you say, well, what are the white things? And I start listing them, people be like, well, there's black people engaged in those things. Of course. There are women who do masculine things. Of course.
I don't know about this people like and respect white things more situation. Again, maybe that's an American-centric point of view, but I considering the success of black culture in America, I just feel like that's very dubious statement to make personally. Maybe I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I don't really know the day to day on the ground what it's like in America. I've spoken with Americans a lot, and it seems like people like to banter, and I quite like Americans generally actually, but the how do I put this? I've never really gotten this vibe that people are like really, apart from when I've spoken to a few white supremacist types, but I've never really gotten this vibe that people are like really into white culture over other culture. Sometimes though, I will see certain things that do make me go, what? Like, so for instance, like I've known plenty of people who are like super lefty, they're all about Black Lives Matter, they care about the black experience and all this stuff. But all the music and all the media and all the books they read, like everything that they consume is just all white. Like all of it. And maybe they just like Beyonce or something, you know what I mean? Or they'll like a couple of rappers like Drake or some shit like that, right? And then they think they've got some kind of grasp on black experience or whatever. And I do find that bizarre sometimes. Like I do find it bizarre when like these super left-wingy people are like so into just white stuff. Because I'm into loads of black stuff, so I like a lot of white stuff too. Don't get me wrong, I do like some white stuff too, but like I'm really into like a lot of black shit. Like when it comes to music and culture, the dress, art, comedy, like there's loads of shit, and I don't know, like I just it is really bizarre. Like these people that are like kind of the people that kind of hate white people the most are also the ones that are like ingest the most white culture, if you get me. Or at least that's been my experience of it anyway. And I will say that there is like this tendency. It's not that I don't really believe in cultural appropriation, so I don't really want to use that word, but I have noticed that I grew up. My dad's a graffiti artist, and my mum is just my mum, and she is. They both love black stuff, but my mum loves like the soul singers and the R&B and stuff like that. My dad likes the rap and stuff like that. So my dad grew me up with like rap and stuff. My mum grew me up with the R&B singers and stuff. So, and she also grew me up with like the white 80s stuff and whatever. But primarily it was like Shaka Khan, Bill Withers, fucking Biggie Smalls, fucking Public Enemy. These were like main staples in my household. And that's what I grew up with. And I thought that was normal. I thought most people were listening to this kind of stuff. It was only when I got to college that I started to realize that I was actually quite different to a lot of people in what I was exposed to. Because it was only when I got to college that people started to realize about hip hop. Like a lot of my white friends, most of my friends are white, but most of the people I met in college were only just finding out about drum and bass or it's like old school hip hop and shit. Like they'd know bits and pieces. Obviously, they might know Eminem or they'd know like Jay-Z or something, but they never really delved into it in any meaningful way. Whereas I'd grown up with it my whole life. So like, you know, in one way I liked it because I was like, oh, more people are getting into the stuff that I like. That's cool. We can have conversations. But then on the flip side of it, it was a little frustrating because, and to be fair, these are teenagers. This is when I was a teenager. So, you know, I will cut people some slack, but people would act like so cultured and stuff from it, but they wouldn't even be really taking away the right messages and shit. Like, they didn't even realize what they were listening to a lot of times, I think. And it became more of a fashion statement than a cultural lifestyle. And I understand the frustration with cultural appropriation from that respect, because it is a bit annoying when you see people who don't really know what the fuck they're on about. trying to act like they fucking are part of the scene or whatever, you know? It's annoying. I do get that it's annoying. But I think for the purposes of integration and diversity of people moving forward in the West, shit like that, you just gotta let it slide. Like, you just gotta. It's annoying, but you've gotta let it slide just for integration's sake. And, you know, as time's gone on, a lot of these people that I used to know that were like that are now, you know, they do their own nights. They're actually part of the culture now. Like, they do their own nights, so they do their own drum and bass nights and stuff, and they got in kind of big and stuff. I'm like, you know what? Fair enough. Everyone has to start somewhere. You can't always just grow up with this shit, you know. You know, I was lucky in that respect. Just, I feel like it gave me a bit of a deeper understanding, but at the end of the day, it's whatever, isn't it? You know, what are you gonna do? It's just humans. And I think overall, it's better that people get integrated rather than try to separate themselves off. So, yeah, there you go. It's just what it's going to be.
The issue is when we presume as the default that, like, white things are better. Things that are more...
Yeah, I've never thought that. I guess, like I say, that's just what... because of my upbringing, maybe that's just why I think that. Like, I used to actually dislike a lot of white shit for a long time growing up, because I just felt like it wasn't as good. Like, you know, I'd listen to a lot of black music and stuff. I'd be listening to, like, funk fusion, or I'd be listening to, like, fucking, like, just some of the maddest rap, like, some of the craziest good skills, like, storytellers, like, saying all this crazy shit. And then I'd be listening to, like, white music, and I'd just be like, I feel like I've heard this song, like, a million times. Over time, I've grown a deeper appreciation for white stuff. White people take a lot of flack in the cultural department, but I wouldn't say anyone's better. I just like the differences. I like the contexts that they appear from. I like the integration. I think it's like a bit of a false narrative to try to make it some kind of competition between cultures in that respect. I think you should just embrace all of it. Embrace the white culture, embrace the black culture, embrace the Indian culture, embrace it all. Apart from the horrible stuff, which is horrible. Obviously don't embrace that. But the good things that we can take away, take them, integrate, use it to better your understanding of the world. I think we could all do well to do that.
Culturally white or better. Things that are more culturally masculine are better. They're not necessarily better. They're just what we're used to.
Societal institutions and staples of our society are reinforcing that narrative.
Philip Daniel says, I compose thorny, difficult, dissonant, modern classical. Is that white music? That just makes you go, ugh. No, I love classical music. I love classical music. Don't know if I'm as bothered about the dissonant, usually. It depends how it's done, I guess. Because I have the same problem with jazz. Jazz is also very dissonant in a lot of respects, and to me, it just, yeah, I get it. Like, I some jazz is amazing, but like, there's a lot of it that just, I know it's technically speaking, it's all done extremely well, but to me, just on the ear, it just doesn't sound great. You know what I mean? It just sounds like a load of fucking shit going on. So like, so I'm not a huge jazz fan. I've got a couple of jazz things that I like. But I tend to go with funk fusion because that's like jazz funk. I just like the pace a bit better. But I would say that this modern classical that you're talking about, yeah, you could probably consider that white music, as I would suppose, but just don't think it really matters. I just don't think it really matters massively, to be honest. And I'm sure you're good. I mean, if you're doing classical, look, classical's hard. So, props.
Narrative that men alone have to take on that mantle of being the one to provide, being the one to lead the charge on fixing a problem, right? Where...
So femininity is superior is exactly 50-50. God, think about it. Think about it. Literally fucking think about it. Feminine things are going to be better for certain goals than masculine things. It's not about fucking 50-50. It's not about women is superior.
Yeah, it's about picking and figuring out what needs to go where and what's appropriate for what, which is not a 50-50 situation, because like I said earlier, there's going to be industries that are catered way more to the masculine energy, right? And that is necessary for those particular kinds of industries or businesses or whatever. But the same will be true of the feminine as well. And there will be times where that is a more appropriate or a better predictor of success within this kind of institution or industry or whatever. So yeah, it's just finding that balance, it's finding where those things are. At the minute, I do think she is right in to say that, like, at the minute in most industries, the masculine energy is prized over the feminine energy, and the feminine is overlooked in its usefulness. So I can completely agree with that's where we are in society at the minute. I do think it's changing though, and hopefully with more interesting discussion like this, people will look at workplace environments, will look into these kinds of things, and have a think to themselves about what, do they want this hyper-masculine energy, or do they want to taper off a little bit? Do they want to try something new, something different? So, yeah, I think that's.
It's that when you're building team rapport, feminine traits are more fucking valuable. But when you're like competing with a group that's trying to like destroy you, masculine protectivity and aggression is more valuable. Like, fucking just think. Why do I have to do the heavy lifting for you? Literally fucking think about it. It's not that complex.
I mean, go off, sis. I don't know. Was that necessary? But I know what you mean. It's a bit frustrating that people just automatically assume it has to be that way,
Like,
sometimes it's better to be in your feminine. Sometimes it's better to use masculine traits. That's it. It's not that complicated.
what Tucker was saying, we all experience emotions and, react independently, and we look for community.
Yeah, so I think a direct combat towards the patriarchy is emotional intelligence that we haven't actually talked much about today. We keep going back to business, money, and all these different things because those are things associated with manhood. But if we really want to shift the dynamic, it's about how do we own, like...
It's an important question about emotional intelligence, but one thing I will say about that is that the way that men could do that for themselves and between themselves, but there is a severe lack of empathy for men from women. It's pretty severe. Like, it's very rare to find a woman who has any reasonable and compassionate takes towards men in like most areas of their life. And it's really sad, actually. And it's one of these things where it's like women think they've got this kind of monopoly on empathy and that they know how to do empathy right and stuff like that. But I have this theory that I just think empathy is selective in everybody. And although women may have a higher capacity for empathy when they choose to use it, I don't think that they are always choosing to use empathy. And I think that these decades of feminist talking points that have been pushed on everybody for so long, I think it's created a massive dearth of empathy for men. I think women really struggle to understand anything about male psychology or the pressures that they face. This is why so many feminists, like when they talk about like male issues, one of the only things they can talk about is men not showing their emotions or something, right? That is like the only thing that they can bring up because they don't have a fucking clue. They don't even want to try and put themselves in men's shoes. They don't even care to try and do that. They'll just repeat this one point and that's it. And maybe suicide will come up, but that's usually tied to them not being able to express themselves, right? But a lot of that's bullshit because it's not that men can't express themselves, it's that people don't listen. Men express themselves all the time, but people don't listen. It was actually very nice to see in this group that these men did listen and reached out to that lad who spoke about his brother dying. But you know, it's gotten pretty bad. It's gotten pretty bad. I got lucky when I met my partner because she does have genuine empathy for men. Sometimes she says some things that I do have to question because she can be a bit hateful towards men at times. She can. But I forgive her because she also does have genuine compassion for men as well. I think she's just an honest person. So when she's frustrated, she might not always say things in the best way, but I have to take it with a pinch of salt because it's like a frustrated moment. And she does the same with me too. People do misconstrue me as being hateful to women because I do criticize women and feminism in particular, like modern feminism or radical feminism. But they don't. But she gets it. She knows what I'm saying. She knows I've got compassion for women. She knows that I care about women. She just realizes that I think things are outdated and that I'm trying to figure something else out. And she gets that because she kind of feels that way. She's a feminist, but she kind of feels that way too, I think, a bit. I think she's a little bit disenfranchised from the modern feminist world and the modern leftist world and what it's become.
The emotional parts of ourselves as men, and that is not a conversation that is had in society enough, nor is it supported in a patriarchal.
Juan Zerka, what the fuck are you doing back here? I already told you to leave, you sniveling weasel, okay? Go talk shit about me with your friends instead of coming here. At least the veil's fucking off and you're not pretending to be nice to me anymore. But you're not even engaging in what I'm saying. I never said masculine traits are scary and bad and feminine traits are good. I said masculine traits are good and feminine traits are good. And let's stop coping about it. They're both valuable.
Zerka's just trolling, clearly. Zerka's just fully trolling. He's trying to trigger you, and you've taken the bait.
Patriarchal society, it impacts men in a way where we feel like we can't let the armor down.
That's what the difference between you're saying like third wave feminism versus like first and second wave. I feel like now it's about superiority. When you're saying like you're mansplaining, or when you're like putting like men do this or men take advantage and men do that, it makes it as we're your enemy, when in reality it should be more about like working as a team, right?
I have a clarifying question.
Yeah.
So you were describing that it's shifting to matriarchy, right?
Yeah, matriarchy. Just like more like being against, like when you're demonizing men for like their actions in general.
Yeah. So like when we're moving towards a socially matriarchal society, it's mansplaining and it's men being canceled. But when patriarchy is in place, we're dealing with issues of wealth. We're dealing with issues of healthcare, whether you consider it healthcare or not. We're dealing with issues of safety. We're dealing with issues of liberty. We're dealing with issues of choice.
But that's... People are still having their liberties dealt with. I don't know. I don't completely disagree with what he's saying, but I just don't think he's... And this is part of the problem, really, is that, again, people just aren't listening to men about their problems. He's so quick to diminish anything about what what is happening with men, to just bring it back to women and as if the 1950s will commence again any second now, which I just don't think most men really want. I think men just want to be listened to. I think men just want to be taken seriously when they say that there's a problem with depression or whatever, or there's a problem with the social expectations that people put on them, mainly by women, right? And that women need to kind of maybe fucking calm down a bit and stop expecting crazy high expectations of men in so many different facets of life. That's all they really want. I think most men are more than willing to help women with their issues as well. It's not an either-or situation where, to focus on men's issues, we now need to stop focusing on women's issues. I think it's that we focus so much on women's issues with literally no focus on men's issues whatsoever, that it's just created this huge imbalance in society that just needs rectifying. And I think it's getting that way, actually. I have a lot of hope for the Zoomers. A lot of the Zoomers seem to be breaking the mold on this stuff. I think they're radical centrists, a lot of them, and they I don't think they like a lot of either side, really. I think they want something new. I think they feel like what the feminists are saying is old, what the traditional guys, what the red pillars are saying, they're old. That's old news. I think they want something better, bigger, something more less divisive, more holistic. I think that's what people want.
It seems that matriarchy is less, I guess, oppressively heavy because
You make matriarchy sound fucking lame, though. Oh, God, stop.
all I have to deal with is you not liking what I have to say. Whereas in a patriarchy, I can't make as much money. That's worse.
Well, it's not just about disagreeing about whether or not it exists. And the fact of the matter is, even in a patriarchal society, which does.
But that doesn't make any sense, because all this time they've been talking about living in a patriarchal society. They think they live in one, but now they're kind of talking like they don't live in one. And it would be worse if they did live in one, because then it would revert back to these things that we don't like. So what is it? Like, maybe I'm just being too pedantic there, but that it seems like their position is shifted a little bit there.
Doesn't exist, men and women can still go and make the same amount of money. If women majored in higher paying fields of study, they would make more money. When we talk about men's mental health, I separate it from patriarchy, because I think that to be expressive about what you're feeling and what you're going through, you have to be strong. And being strong, I associate that with being a man, being masculine. Maybe society would like to beat you up for that. Maybe that's why men are likelier to commit suicide. But that is still an example of strength.
I think that as we get further,
I like this guy. I like his points, but I do think he's probably, because he's on a short space of time, he's probably not explaining himself very well. But like, it is strong to express your feelings, I think. I don't know if society wants to beat you up exactly. This is what I don't like, is when it starts to get into vague terms like society. Society is not really the problem. It's that men are trying to fit women's expectations. That's the society we're talking about, really. Mostly. There are times where men do pressure other men into other stuff. Like, a good example was putting sex on a pedestal. That is a good example of men doing that to themselves. But more often than not, most of the pressures that men are feeling to be providers and protectors, and how that affects them mentally and all that stuff, those pressures are actually put on them by women. Right? Those pressures are put on them by women because they are basically denied access to love, companionship, romance, family, children, stable family life. They are literally deprived of all that if they don't provide that for women in the first place. So they've got to gear their whole lives around these pressures to make it happen for them. And even then, it's dubious if it's going to happen for them, even if they fulfill these things. So it's it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. But I don't. This is why I don't like to call it patriarchy, though. Is because these pressures are stemming from women. And so, to me, that is not patriarchy. It's also not a legal system, so it's not patriarchy by that definition as well.
and further along the generations, we need to start preaching to young men the type of strength that you were talking about. Self-awareness, discipline, and honesty, emotional honesty. Not being tough and not like, being able to go through a lot, but being aware when you're going through something, when you're struggling, being able to articulate that, right? And doing it to the right people at the right time. I think that is what strength is. And I think that that's a positive message that we could communicate.
I would agree with that. I generally agree with what he's saying. I think the big step for men or for women is to listen. Men will listen to other men. Maybe that's just what we have to do. Maybe we can't include women. Maybe women shouldn't be included in our emotional tirades. Maybe it should be a man thing. Maybe men need to be meeting up to express their emotions between each other rather than to women. Maybe that's the answer. Either that or women need to be more prepared to listen when men are opening up to them. Not that women don't exactly, but it's just that there's a tendency with women to brush aside women's emotions because they get uncomfortable with it. They don't want to see a man in a weak state. They don't want to. They start losing attraction for him. They don't want to. They want him to be the emotional rock for them, not the other way around. They don't want to be an emotional rock for the man, you know, that kind of thing. They start to feel like they're stepping into a situation that they were not prepared for. And some women do a better job at this than others. I definitely know women who have listened to my problems and have been very good to me. I've also had a lot of experiences with women where they just want to move on to the next topic as soon as possible because they're getting uncomfortable with the conversation. They don't know where to go with it. You know, they'll just move it on as quickly as possible. Men do it too, by the way, but in my experience, men have been a lot more receptive to opening up. So maybe it's just got to be a man thing. Maybe we just got to do it between us men and fuck the women. Not literally, I mean metaphorically. You know, fuck them. We don't need to tell them our emotions, but we'll tell each other, you know?
To the next generation about masculinity.
We ended on consensus.
Yes, that is a wrap on male feminists versus male.
I have to say as well, with the male feminists, male anti-feminists, what a classy, even though it was a bit messy sometimes, it was a very classy conversation in comparison to the feminists versus anti-feminists, right? The female one. God, they couldn't even stay on topic, the other one. I might even do that other video another day, because it only came out the other day. So I might do that one soon. But anyway, I've got to get going because it's quite late. It's quite late here, and I went over my time by a good hour. I was hoping to try and finish by 10. It's now 11 o'clock, so... Ooh. So I haven't got much more to say about the video. All I'll say is Erudite did a very good job. I'm glad that we had her input in this to bounce off of. I thought that this discussion was pretty good in general. I thought there was enough room in there for me to really give my point of view on modern feminism and where I stand with it as well, and my thoughts and feelings. So yeah, I think we've covered a lot there, but we've been going for like, fuck me. The original stream was nearly 7 hours. We've probably been going for like 8 hours, Matt, total. I don't know. I have no clue. What time are we on? 7:29, I think, altogether. Jesus. Well, thank you to everybody that tuned in. We're getting a few regulars in the chat these days, which is nice to see. We had Lev pop in as well from the Break the Rules podcast. If you haven't seen Break the Rules, go watch Break the Rules. Great podcast. I may even be on there on Thursday. I don't know. We'll see. It is quite late, I think, so I don't know. But it's always nice when Lev stops by. Gotta love a bit of Lev. We've had Matthew Walker in the chat. We've had various people from Twitch. It's nice to have a couple of Twitch. We've had a couple of Twitch chatters as well, which has been nice. We don't normally get Twitch chatters in the YouTube chat, so that's been very nice to see as well. So again, thank you to everyone that tuned in. It's been a great little stream. Please keep your eyes peeled because I'll probably be streaming again very soon. I'm even thinking about bringing out a proper edited, scripted video. Ooh, my first one of the channel, I think. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I set up another channel for some media stuff, which I don't want to connect to this channel because I don't want my politics and media takes to be combined. I think they should stay separate. But I have been thinking about doing a scripted video about BLM and the BLM rights because I did cover a fair bit of that at the time, and it was a big interest of mine at the time. I know a lot about it. I know a hell of a lot about it. And I've just got all this information floating around, and I just feel like I need to do like a big expose video. So I think that's going to be my next venture. So I don't know when I'm going to bring that out because I want to make sure that I make it well. I want it to be airtight in terms of research and evidence that I'm bringing to the table, so that I'm not just saying random shit. I mean, I already know that I've got a lot of this down already in my brain because I already went over a lot of this research myself multiple times at different points in time over the last few years. But it's going to be a lot of work because I'm going to have to compile a lot of articles, a lot of crime statistics. I'm going to have to show a lot of video evidence of particular things happening. I'm going to have to put everything in a very particular context to show the BLM story, if you will, and how it progressed into like a kind of fucked up propaganda movement, which I think it was always meant to be quite frank. But anyway, I won't get into all my opinions on that here because that'll just spoil the video, wouldn't it? That would just spoil the video, so we don't want to do that. But yeah, okay, so I'm gonna call it there. But yeah, give a like, give a subscribe to everyone that's made it this far. I doubt that many of you would have made it this far, but if you have made it this far, give a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. It goes a long way to helping the channel. It really does. I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for clout. I don't do any of this for any of that reason. Although I would love money and clout, of course, but I'm not really doing it for that. I'm just a guy that likes to vent. This has been a hobby of mine for a while, and I just appreciate anyone that comes and oh, Philip Daniel actually replied back. Why did I not get that message? If she were right about white culture's dominance and such living masters of Wolfgang Graham, Alexander Goa, and Frederick Serra would be household names, but they are not. So I'm assuming these are obscure classical artists. And yeah, I know what you mean. But I mean, I guess there are big classical artists that everybody knows, but yeah, you know, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah, if white stuff, but it kind of is, it kind of isn't. I don't know. Yeah, I don't agree with that personally. But there's definitely white people out there who just ingest a lot of white stuff and don't really broaden their horizons. I don't really know what that means, but that's, you know, it just is what it is, isn't it? Anyway, we'll leave it there. Like I say, thank you to everyone that got involved in the chat. Please swing by again if you see me going live, because I usually stream for a long time, so you know, you don't have to worry about jumping in at the beginning. I'll be here for fucking usually a good fucking 8 hours or more. So yeah. Anyway, I can never end a stream. I can never end a stream. I just need to end it, don't I? Right. Stop the stream. Stop it now. It's gonna end. I'm ending it now. Goodbye.